per account. It's time to bring a friend into the family.
Your severe weather station, News Talk 1480 WHBC.
Here's your AccuWeather forecast. For tonight, expect partly cloudy skies and breezy conditions with a couple of showers of rain or snow with a low of 31. Winds west of 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tomorrow, cloudy, breezy, and cold with a couple of flurries, high 32. Winds northwest of 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, low 18. Winds north and northwest at 6 to 12 miles per hour. Get your weather news when and how you want it wherever you are. Download our free app or visit AccuWeather.com. I'm Caitlin Lawrence for News Talk 1480 WHBC.
Live from the studios of News Talk 1480 WHBC, it's Kenny and JT.
Welcome back to the Friday edition of the Kenny and JT Show. Unfortunately, Kenny can't be a part of our interview today because he's a little bit under the weather, but we're not, and we're so happy right now to have in studio with us class of 1993 Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was inducted with Dan Fouts, Chuck Noll, Walter Payton, and Bill Walsh. None other than Larry Little, number 66 in your program, but number 1 in your heart right now in this
That's
place.
right, the number 1 class,
Man.
too, 1993. I put that, say that. Dan said that. I know he did.
Well, yeah,
We're
he
the
did.
number 1 class.
A lot of people consider that one of the most accomplished groups ever enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and especially, I mean, obviously you go with Walter Payton, so to us, it doesn't get much bigger than that. But when we think back on your career, it was outstanding. And we were just talking about the NFL Combine a couple of minutes ago with a beat reporter of the Cleveland Browns. And we're thinking about, okay, you go there, you test, you run, you jump, you do this, you do that, you talk to the teams, and then you get drafted. But that wasn't your course to the NFL.
No, it wasn't. My route to the NFL, we had scouts that come to my alma mater, Bethune-Cookman.
Uh-huh.
I was timed running the 40-yard dash. We didn't have grass on our field, so I did pretty good, not having grass. But I was free agent. No team, during those days, you had 22 draft picks.
Okay.
Not like today when you have only 7 rounds to pick. But during those, and I was told by different teams that they were going to draft me. Me being, I'm going to the pros. I'm going to the pros. I waited by the phone. I was the captain of the football team at my alma mater, Bethune-Cookman. The telephone booth was right next to my room. Mm-hmm. It was me being the captain. I was the big dog on the football team. Okay. Nobody was going to use that telephone because I'm waiting on a phone call from a pro team. Mm-hmm. And no one got near that phone because they were hoping, too, that I would be drafted. 2 days went by, I wasn't drafted. The third day, I got a phone call from the Baltimore Colts. And they said, Larry, we want to sign you as a free agent. Me, hearing about bonuses and everything, that I getting bonuses, I said, well, how much bonus are you going to give me? Well, we don't give free agents bonuses. Oh, okay. Next, I said, okay then. I didn't say anything. I said, I'm not signing with the Baltimore Colts. I didn't tell them I wasn't going to sign with them. The next day, I got a call from them saying they go Chargers. So I asked them the same question. Am I going to get a bonus? So, yeah, we're going to give you $750. I said, I jumped to it because I never had that much money in my life. But I didn't sign right away. I wanted to hold off a little bit to see if I heard from anyone else. The next day, the Miami Dolphins called me. And I've tried to play the game, one of those kind of games. And I said, this is Joe Thomas, the Dolphins player personnel director. This is Joe Thomas, Larry. Me being from Miami. Miami's my home.
Okay.
He said, how would you like coming back home to play for the Miami Dolphins? I said, Joe, I would love playing in Miami. I said, okay, Joe, by the way, are you going to give me a bonus? He said, yeah, we're going to give you a bonus of $500. I said, well, Joe, I'm going to San Diego. I signed for $750.
That's incredible because, when you consider the fact that, you're sitting there, you're waiting to get drafted, the day goes by, and it's totally different. And the thing that goes through my mind was this. If you're talking about the Baltimore Colts back then, you end up playing for Don Shula. Was he at the Colts when they called
Don
you?
Shula was the coach at that time,
Okay.
yes.
So then he has his eye on you.
I don't know if he had his eyes
Okay.
on me or the scouts had their eyes on me.
Okay.
I don't know if he knew anything about Larry Little.
Okay.
But the scouts knew about Larry Little. During those days, the scouts have information on players,
Okay.
and they may not take it to the head coach until something happened, like signing with them or whatever.
Okay. Because I read somewhere that there was 14 Pro Football Hall of Famers that went undrafted. I don't know how long ago that article was printed, but you were one of the first 14 that got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, oddly enough, after a 14-year career, correct?
Correct.
So that's incredible. So obviously we move forward. Forget about the San Diego Chargers because when I was a kid, and I grew up in Canton, Ohio, my entire life, and I couldn't stand the Miami Dolphins. Everybody ended up being a Miami Dolphin fan because perfect season, win back-to-back Super Bowl. My brother's a Dallas Cowboy fans. What was it about the Dolphins that you guys were able to make it into a juggernaut?
Well, what happened, once we went undefeated, that's when people started hating us.
Got you.
And
Everybody liked it. Everybody had shirts. Kid next to me in school had a Miami Dolphins. I couldn't stand it. He had a notebook with a Miami Dolphins helmet on it.
But the Miami Dolphins was a young football team. You had guys, like the Cleveland Browns, that have been around forever, since
Correct.
the 20s. The Colts have been around forever. And the Dolphins didn't come into existence until 1966.
Okay.
And we were not winning until 1970. We never had a winning team until 1970 when Don Shula came in to be the head football coach. My first year with the Dolphins, we were 3-10-1 under the coach George Wilson.
Okay.
That's the reason I didn't want to come to Miami. I didn't want to leave San Diego. I was getting ready to make my home in San Diego because Chargers weren't winning championships, but they were winning. And Miami, 2-11 or 2-12, whatever. I didn't want to play for a team like that.
Okay.
I wanted to play for a team that could win, but everything fell in place for me.
It was an outstanding career. We're so happy to have Larry Little in studio with us right now. You come out in 67?
Yes.
The 67 draft. Pro Football Hall of Fame, as I recall, isn't built till 1963, the year I'm born.
Correct.
When did you first come into contact with Canton, Ohio? I mean, you're playing, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame is as young as the Miami Dolphins.
To tell you the truth, I had never heard of Canton, Ohio. I really hadn't. I didn't know anything about Canton, Ohio. When I was playing in college, I followed pro football.
Okay.
Because I was always a pro football fan. I always wanted to play professional football, even in high school, elementary school, when the counselor would say, what do you want to do in the future? I would always say, play pro football.
Okay.
But I never thought of Canton, Ohio being the place, especially being the place where the Pro Football Hall of Fame was born.
Okay.
I never knew about it, never heard of it.
You get inducted in 1993. Had you visited prior to that time? Had you been here for any game? Did you play in any of the games? Did you come for any of the other classes inducted before you?
No, I only came and we played a preseason game here one year against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
We played a preseason game against the Eagles here one year.
We mentioned Don Shula. You went to school, college right up the road at John Carroll in Cleveland.
Correct.
What was the best thing about Don Shula?
Motivator. Don was a hell of a motivator. He could motivate without screaming. A lot of times you see coaches talking, the team, they're yelling and screaming. He only motivated by telling us what we had to do to win and what we couldn't do to lose.
Okay.
Go out there and be yourself, play, don't make mistakes, in which we didn't make a lot of mistakes. That's why we were so good. We were the less penalized team every year in the NFL. Now, a lot of people say we were less penalized because Don was over the competition committee and over the rules committee. And he gave officials hell, too. Believe me, he did.
It was outstanding. I mean, that's one thing that we did like is, it's one of our own. And it's kind of like, you go back into, You might like a certain team because maybe there's a player from your hometown on it. We claim him as one of ours. He's Northeast Ohio, went to John Carroll University, so we claim Don Shula. So there's a little bit of us that like him. That's the reason why. I also read up on your Wikipedia page that you got into coaching after your playing days.
I did.
Did you take anything from Don Shula with you as a coach?
Well, I had never been a coach before when I got the job. No, the first thing I went to Coach Shula for, I wanted to get our old playbook. The playbook that we used with the Dolphins.
He gave it to you?
Yeah, he gave it to me. I got the playbook, and I asked him different questions about coaching. He said, one thing, Larry, you're going to get into coaching. You're going to be a head coach, but let your coaches coach.
Okay.
Don't be over your coaches. Everything they do, let them be the coach of their position. Okay. And that's what I took from Coach Shula when I went to him.
You were one of the very first offensive guards inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and to this day, probably one of the best that ever suited it up. And I took this picture, and I took a screenshot, and I know people are watching us on Facebook.
Well, actually, I was the first right guard going into the Hall of Fame.
Even better yet.
Yes.
Because I want you to explain to me, in this Super Bowl, and I think it's Super Bowl 8, and you can see this block right here.
On Jim Marshall?
Yes! I mean, I don't know if you people can see this, but, I mean, you could drive a truck in that hole right there.
Oh, that's not the one there. That's the one with...
That's the Super Bowl Zonka goes right in the hole.
Yeah, that's the one when we played Minnesota, and I blocked Gary Larson.
Gary Larson.
I thought you were talking about the one when I upended Jim Marshall on a trap play.
I don't know if you ever had a hole that big after hitting Marshall, but I mean this block right here.
Yeah, Zon could have walked in.
Absolutely,
he could have walked in.
And he still almost got caught on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Would you have been mad if he didn't score on that play?
Not really, because I knew eventually he would score. Being Zonk being Zonk, he would have scored. Yeah.
He's another local guy who grew up in Ohio, and.
And don't forget about Paul Warfield.
Absolutely. We've had him on this program many times. And, that's one of the things we consider what's going on right now in the NFL, and certain players that are getting traded, but they're being asked to be traded.
Right.
When Warfield was traded to Miami from Cleveland, it ripped our hearts out.
And he was very disappointed. Really, Paul had really never heard, being in the NFC, I mean.
Right.
He had never known, Paul didn't know anything about the Miami Dolphins in the AFC. And I know he was disappointed leaving Cleveland, coming to Miami. But he probably did know that he was coming to a great coach in Don Shula.
Right.
By playing against Shula when he was with Cleveland. But Paul wasn't very happy about coming to Miami.
I don't know.
You could tell that when he first got there. But being the true professional that he was, he came in, and we followed. Paul was the leader on that team. Quiet leader. He didn't say a whole lot. He just went out and did his job.
And he went to Warren Harding High School, which was a member of the conference that our high school played in. At the time, it was the All-American Conference. Alan Page was in that conference.
Right.
He played at Canton Central Catholic, so we knew Alan Page as well.
Right.
You went up against them in the Super Bowl, too.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't play against him because he was on the other side.
Yeah.
But Bob Kuchenberg had one of his great games ever against
It was a heck
Alan
of an
Page.
offensive line.
And Bob and Alan played together at Notre Dame.
No kidding.
Not Bob, Alan and Bob.
Right.
Played together at Notre Dame.
That's outstanding. Larry Little, our guest, 1969 AFL All-Star, 1971 AFC champion, 1972 AFC champion, 1973 Super Bowl champion. That's the undefeated season. You beat Washington. 1973 AFC champion, 74 Super Bowl champion. That's the game you beat the Minnesota Vikings. Let's talk about that undefeated season before we talk about this residency program, because to this day, are you amazed that no other team, and I know I don't care about how many games they played, whether it was a 12 or 14, whatever. Can you believe that no other team ever went undefeated? And is it true that you pop bottles of champagne every time somebody gets beat?
Well, look, I'll put it this way. When we first went undefeated, it never crossed my mind that there wouldn't be another team that would go undefeated. I thought it would happen. I never thought this year would be 53 years.
Unreal.
And it still has not happened. It never crossed my mind that a team wouldn't go undefeated. And in 1985, what happened? Everybody said the Bears were going to go undefeated.
Right.
and the Monday Night Football. But you know what? You know what team knocked
Who
off
beat
the
'em?
bed? Our little brothers, the Miami Dolphins.
Isn't that amazing? That's something else,
Yep.
isn't it?
Yep. And then the other year when New England got close,
Yep.
I was really afraid.
Yeah.
I was afraid that was going to happen
Yeah.
because they were a great, great football team. But if you can recall, looking back at the last game they played that year against the New York Giants, the Giants gave them hell.
Right.
They barely beat the Giants in that game. So going into that game, I felt that the Giants may have had a chance to beat them, but not beat them the way they beat them.
Right, right.
You know, on a freak
Yeah.
play, like Eli Manning throwing the ball
Yeah.
to that receiver that made that catch.
It's unbelievable. Larry Little, our guest, class of 1993 at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You come back every year, or when you do have the availability to come back for the Pro Football Hall of Fame weekend, but this is different. Tell us about the Hall of Fame residency program. You and your lovely wife, Rosie, are in town. You've been here since what, Monday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Well, I'd never really heard of it before coming back this year, but I'm very, very impressed with the program. Coming back to me, Canton is my second home. And, you know, Miami is my home. I was born in Georgia, raised in Miami all my life, but coming to Canton is my second home. And today, being a part of the program, visiting the food bank, and that was just an amazing place.
Yeah.
To see the people coming there getting food in the warehouse, and then going to the home where the homeless people came in today to eat breakfast. It's just something that I was very amazed at what the people of Canton are doing with their programs.
Well, this program, it means the world to us, and we're so happy to have you, especially in studio with us right now. And it's Larry Little, the class of 1993. I mentioned some of the people in that class that went in with you: Dan Fouts, Chuck Knoll, Walter Payton, Bill Walsh. And I want to start off with Dan Fouts because we've gotten to be friends with the Foutses, and Jerry and I, you know, we go online and we text back and forth. She says to say hi to Rosie, and then she says, "We're number one."
Yes.
What's that all about?
Well, Dan really takes it to an extreme. We'll be into a meeting or walking. Dina come in. Dan will come in. We are number one. We are number one because we are number one.
The class?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we are number one.
It's
I mean, you
unreal.
can't. How can you
Right.
be better? Have a better class than what we had. Dan, Chuck Dole,
Right.
Bill Walsh, and the great Walter Payton.
Unreal.
And I throw my little body in there too. You know, being
Hey,
pretty
you were
good.
the best
So
one
we
that
were a great class.
You might be the best one out of that entire group. I want to ask you about this too, because I can recall this game. And tell me about 82 minutes and 40 seconds. That was a game where you guys play the Kansas City Chiefs. To this day, I believe it's still the longest game in history. Now, when I played high school football, it was 12-minute quarters. Played a little bit in college, 15-minute. That was like an eternity, those extra 3 minutes. You played almost an extra 22 minutes and change, 82 minutes and 40 seconds against the Kansas City Chiefs, 27-24 in the AFC divisional game, 1971.
On Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day.
That was, hey, let me tell you, and what makes that game so amazing to me, I had a hip pointer in the first quarter. And playing against probably at that time the strongest man in professional football in Curly Culp,
Okay.
the great Curly Culp with the Kansas City Chiefs. But things just kept happening in that game. But we always felt that in Kansas City, we just come off of winning the Super Bowl
Okay.
against the Minnesota Vikings
Right.
that year. So we knew they were a great football team. And looking back, I've seen that highlight. I can see it while I was playing, but we just believed that we could win that football game. Nothing wasn't going to stop us from winning that football game. We had people that made great plays in that game. Ed Podolak had probably one of the best games of any playoff game in history for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And I can remember him running for a touchdown, and the effort that Curtis Johnson, our defensive back, went and got him to keep him from making the touchdown. Then the great Sean Tenstenerud missing those field goals the way he did. And every time, and I know he hates me for this, Stenerud does. I say, thank you. Thank you.
You darn kicker.
And he hates me for that too. But the play that put us in the field goal range was a play called roll right, trap left.
Okay.
With Zonka getting the ball, Greasy called his own plays during that year too.
Okay.
And we hadn't run that play all year.
Okay.
And Greasy and nothing else really worked. It was working, but not to that extent. And Greasy in the huddle, we had practiced that play, but we never ran it in a game. And Greasy called the play roll right, trap left.
Okay.
That would fake the running back going one direction and giving it to him, and me pulling from the right guard position to lead Zonk up the field.
Okay.
And I did. I was going down and knocked the guy head off, the defensive back, but he ducked me and went under me, but Zonk still got the yards. And that set us up for the field goal with Garrow Premium coming up kicking the field goal to win that game. Talking about that we were known as an unemotional football team. We didn't show a lot of emotions. But after that
because
game,
that's the way the coach was.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But in the locker room, we were emotional.
Really?
I got me playing that 80-some minutes in the game.
That's amazing. 82 minutes and 40 seconds.
I mean, shoot.
That's unreal. So
And we closed down Kansas City Stadium. We closed down the last game we played in that stadium. And we played them. We opened up the new Arrowhead Stadium the next year. And we won that game. We opened up Arrowhead, the new Arrowhead.
They don't want to see you over there anymore. They don't want to see you in Kansas City. So, I mean, those teams, that offensive line was so good. Everybody, the no-name defense. And Nick Buonacani and everybody, we all remember that. But from what I could tell, what I see a lot of times, everything was a counter. Everything was a sweep. I know Bob Greasy would air it out. But tell me about that offensive line. What made you guys so good?
Well, first we had a great offensive line coach by the name of Monty Clark.
Okay.
Monty, I know the old Cleveland fans probably remember Monty Clark. Monty was the starting right tackle for the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
And when Shula came to Miami, he couldn't bring, because of the way that he left, he can bring any assistant coaches with him to Miami. He left Baltimore, right. But I think Bland Collier was the head coach with the Browns at the time. And Bland Collier recommended Monty because Monty was getting ready to retire.
Really?
And that was the first coaching job that Monty had coming to the Miami Dolphins. And he was our offensive line coach. Monty instilled a lot of pride in us. And every time we played a game, we would huddle up together as a line and saying, best in the business.
Okay.
And Monty instilled that in us to believe that we were the best in the business. And all of us were discarded from other teams.
Really?
None of us were drafted. Well, Jim Langer was drafted by the Dolphins.
Okay.
But what happened? No, he wasn't drafted by Cleveland. Norm Evans, the right tackle, he came to Miami in the expansion draft.
Okay.
Jim Langer, the center, he signed with the Cleveland Browns as a linebacker. And it was cut, but Monty knew about it and brought him to Miami. Bob Kuchenberg played with the Eagles and was cut and was playing with a team called the Chicago Owls in the Continental Football League.
Really?
Wayne Moore, the left tackle, Monty was from San Francisco, California.
Okay.
Wayne was a basketball player at Lamar Tech in Texas. He didn't play football.
Unreal.
But Monty would go home during the off-season to see this big guy playing basketball. And when San Francisco cut him, Monty knew his real name. They tried to keep him and hide him. The 49ers did by using the name Solomon, which was his real name, first name Solomon Moore.
Okay.
But they put him out there as Wayne Moore. But Monty knew his name was Solomon Moore, so that's how we got Wayne Moore.
Unreal.
Every one of us came from somewhere else, and we just blended, and we had great cohesiveness that made us, and we believed in one another. We were smart too.
Right.
We were smart. We didn't make mistakes now. because but Bonnie wouldn't stand for it. Neither was Shula.
Yeah.
And we got in our playbooks. We believed in one another.
Right.
And we believed against anybody that we played that we were better than they were. That's what Monty instilled in us.
Well, you played in 3 straight Super Bowls, won back-to-back Super Bowls, 7 and 8. And, you know, the thing that really is impressive to me is the fact that not only the way you won them, and obviously the undefeated season, but being able to answer it in what we consider probably the greatest era of the NFL, and especially if it was it considered the AFL yet or just the AFC?
Well, we were the AFC. The
Okay.
AFL changed in 1970, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was right on the heels of
Yeah.
that. I want to ask you about another Pro Football Hall of Famer that was here for the residency program, who he owes me some money, and you played against Bobby Bell, and he stole a quarter out of my hand.
Yeah, he'll do that.
So when you get together with these guys, and you're the greatest class, and he's the greatest that ever walked, how do you get along with everybody else at the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, the impressive part about Bobby, you know, I've missed 3 years coming back for the induction.
Okay.
And all the years that Bobby's been in the I mean the Hall of Fame, he has never missed a year of coming back. And there were 2 people that you could always hear before you see him. One was Bobby, and the other was Deacon Jones.
Deacon.
You could always hear him before you see him.
Yeah.
But they were that loud. They would let you know they were in the building.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And Bobby was a great guy. I have a lot of respect for Bobby. And he was on that Kansas City team that we beat.
Yes.
And in fact, they had, it was 3 Hall of Famers on their defense that we beat that year. Bobby, Willie Lanier, and Emmett Thomas.
Emmett Thomas.
Yes.
How about the Dolphins teams? I mean, obviously Zonka. Who else? Bob Greasy. Who else is in the Hall of Fame from those classes?
Jim Langer, the center.
Okay.
Jim is in the Hall of Fame. Myself, Warfield, Paul, Zonk.
He went in as a Brown. Go ahead.
Did he?
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, Nick Bonacani. Nick was the only, and that's undeserving. We have more guys that's deserving off of our defense that's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was...
Our defense made 5 mental mistakes the whole year.
Really?
5 mental mistakes the whole year. That's how smart they were.
That's amazing.
5.
Yeah.
You know, mental mistakes. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And only one guy's in the Hall of Fame. We had great players like Dick Anderson, Jake Scott.
Jake Scott.
You know, great players. Bill Stanfield. Well, most of us it's only 22 living now. We've lost so many off that team. So we had a great defense, too.
Outstanding.
We were in offense. We were number 1 in offense. We were number 1, in rushing. We were number 1 in special offense, number 1 in special teams, and number 1 in defense. We were number 1 in all those categories.
Zonka, Kick, Mercury Morris come through there. I'm trying to think. Waterfield, who's the other receiver on the other side?
Marlon Briscoe.
Okay, Marlon Briscoe.
And, they alternate. He and Howard Twilley.
Okay.
We just lost Howard Twilley 2 weeks ago.
Was Earl Morrow there when you got there?
No, Earl Schuler, that was the foresight that Schuler had.
Okay.
He played for Schuler at Baltimore.
Okay.
Schuler knew we needed a backup quarterback. Bought Earl, old man Earl. Earl was 39 when he came to us. Our equipment man, with us being such a young football team, our equipment man put a rocking chair in front of Earl's locker.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, and Schuler knew that Earl was always a good backup quarterback. And who took us to the Super Bowl? Basically took us all the way to the Super Bowl, but Greasy was hurt in the 4th game. Earl Morrow came to that game, and he was our leader to get us all the way into the AFC championship game against the Steelers before Bob replaced him in the second half.
Man, that's amazing. Larry Little, it's always a pleasure when we get to have a Pro Football Hall of Famer in studio. And I know you're in town during the residency program, and they've got you going left and right. I mean, when do you guys go back to Miami?
Well, actually, we're leaving here on Sunday to go to the Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland.
Oh, good.
Because they have the body assessment program for the former NFL players. And I'm going to go there, stay there for 2.5 days, get my body checked out.
Yeah.
Players all over the country, they have the program that goes to different hospitals to have their bodies checked out. It's one about 45 miles from me in Florida, and outside of Fort Lauderdale. I wanted to go to that one, but it's full until July with former players coming into town. Yeah. And with me being in Canton, being right next door, I would say, to the original Cleveland Clinic, why not take advantage of it?
Well, that's great, and it's great having you. And I just have one last question for you, because as a Pro Football Hall of Famer in your football career as a player, but as a coach, how do you like it when people refer to you as coach?
I love it. My players still call me coach. Guys that play for me still call me coach. I know my wife get upset sometimes. I have former players calling me all the time to this day.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have my guys on my championship teams. I always told my guys once they graduate to give back to the school, because we were not a major school. Small, 750 students when I graduated.
At Bethune-Cookman?
Yeah, at Bethune-Cookman. And we only had 39 guys on the football team.
Unreal. That's why you play both ways.
That's why I play both ways, yeah. Well, it was a rule back in those days. You had to play both ways. Up until my senior year. Yeah. Up until my senior year, we could go one way.
In an HBCU like that, are you allowed to play as a freshman?
Yeah.
In varsity?
I was. I started as a freshman.
Okay.
But back in those days, major school, you had to have a freshman team. You couldn't play as a freshman. But I could play, and I started my freshman year and started all the way through.
4 years.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yep.
Well, God bless you, man, and thanks for coming in today, and we appreciate it. The city appreciates it. Everyone you come into contact with, and especially with the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the residency program, we appreciate it. And we couldn't be happier that you took time to join us today on the Kenny and JT Show.
Well, I enjoyed what I did today, and I've enjoyed the whole week, although I'm tired.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed being here the whole week, and especially, again, going to the food bank today and going to the other center that I visited, you know, seeing people coming off the street hungry and having people there to feed them and you know, being a part of that, being in the Hall of Fame was really gratifying for me.
You know what's really nice about it is, too, you come into town, you're in a Pro Football Hall of Fame parade, people get to wave, oh, look, there's Larry Little. Now you get a chance to really maybe appreciate a little bit more, and we get the opportunity to maybe, you know, just talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes and go down, you know, some of the things that we grew up with. And it means a lot to people like us because, you know, for those of us that have lived in the shadow of the Hall of Fame our whole lives, we've seen the movies. We can tell you from memory a lot of this. Oh, there's number 66. That's Larry Little. You know, that's that undefeated team that nobody liked except for you. No, I'm just kidding. You know, the Miami Dolphins. But, I mean, it means a lot because we all know the NFL films, but now we know the man, and we really appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Yeah, I met some great people there. In fact, you know, meeting some of the homeless people that told me they remember when I played. They remember me playing. You know, I mean, at my age, you know, a lot of them are younger than I remember.
Right.
But
if they know the game.
Yeah, they know the game. But the older ones saying, I remember you played. One guy told me he has a brother that lives in Miami that's proud of being a Miami Dolphins fan. You know, you hear things like that that's really gratifying.
It's outstanding. You know, I graduated in 1981. And the class behind me won a state championship. And I see one of the players every day. And I told him this morning, we were working out at the gym, and I said, Larry Little's coming in. He goes, great guard. I mean, it's 40 years ago. I mean, he goes, great. I mean, he knew immediately. I mean, people, we don't forget that here in town, and we really appreciate it. And it means the world to us. And now that we know you and your lovely wife, we're going to have you back when you guys come next year for the Hall of Fame festivities, because we're all going to get together with the Faustas.
That'll be fine with me. Fine with me.
Outstanding.
And Dan and I can hold our fingers up together, number one.
I'm gonna do it too. Larry Little and his lovely wife Rosie, thank you for taking the time to join us here on the Kenny and JT Show, Pro Football Hall of Fame residency program, and it'll continue again next Friday. Tune in. We'll let you know who's going to join us next week on the Kenny and JT Show.
'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
It's Kenny and JT on WHBC.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom